After weeks of waiting, Disney is finally set to release their new streaming service, Disney Plus. And if the streaming wars hadn't started already, they've definitely started now. I, for one, am pretty excited. All their new shows look pretty cool. Plus, you've got the entire back catalog of all the Disney movies, Pixar, Star Wars, Marvel. I'm starting to wonder why monopolies are a bad thing. All of that and more is set to stream on the day it launches today. Now, obviously, they've been promoting this. They've been trying to build up the hype. And I think the best way they did that was with the Twitter thread to end all Twitter threads that they posted a couple weeks ago. They listed all the TV shows and movies that were going to be on the service the day it launches. And if you're like me, you saw a bunch of those older movies and you're like, I've never heard of this before and it looks terrible. So what I thought I'd do was pick out a few of them and just based off the title and image alone, try to guess what the movie's about. And then I'd check on IMDb, read the little synopsis, and see how close I got. Sound good?
Good.
Alright, so the first one I pulled up is The Adventures of Bullwhip Griffin. Pretty cool name to start out with. However, I am a little nervous. So we got the main guy here. I assume that's our titular character, Mr. Bullwhip. This is clearly a Western, but Mr. Bullwhip here seems a little too clean cut for my kind of protagonist in a Western. He's got that bowling cap and what appears to be an umbrella. I've seen a handful of Western movies, and typically you'll see the protagonist carrying a gun. I was going to assume that Mr. Bullwhip himself would be carrying a bullwhip. However, he appears to be carrying an umbrella, which is neither a gun nor a bullwhip. Behind him is his dad, I assume, and then his love interest, I assume, is on his other side. And basically the only other thing I had to work with here is there's a stagecoach in the background, pretty common in any Western movie. It does make me think of the movie Stagecoach. But again, I'm a little concerned by the clean-cut nature of our main character here. I feel like this isn't going to be a standard shoot and get your way out of trouble kind of movie. I feel like this guy is going to try to be slick and kind of scheme his way out of whatever trouble is set upon him. As far as the antagonist in this movie, I mean, it is a Disney movie, so pretty safe bet would be Native Americans. Alright, let's go to IMDb, let's read the synopsis, let's see if I got relatively close. A young man from Boston heads west to join the California gold rush with the hopes of restoring his family fortune, but his dedicated butler sets out to find him and bring him home. Okay, so my suspicions were somewhat founded. He's not a cowboy, he's just some rich boy, not as cool. And it's not his dad, it's his butler, which is basically his paid dad, which is pretty lame. No hint as far as how he came about the name Bullwhip, and nothing about his umbrella. So those are still mysteries to me, and they will remain mysteries because I don't think I'm going to watch this one. Alright, next up we have That Darn Cat. And something about the colors and maybe the font, I don't know, it reminds me of whatever streaming service used to have That Thing You Do on it. I feel like it had a very similar kind of image associated with it. It's really making me think like that thing that darn cat do. And that sounds like a much better film. But working with what I got here, there's 3 people and they're all looking at something. Well, 2 of them are looking at something and one does not seem impressed by what's going on whatsoever. And then we've got the cat who appears to be absolutely bawling. I mean, look at that ice around his neck. And to be fair, the people on the side here look like they're pretty well off too. So I'm going to go ahead and say that these 3 are siblings. And their estranged but very wealthy father just passed away and left his entire fortune to that darn cat. So now the 3 siblings, who are also kind of estranged, have to come together and reconcile their past in order to kill that darn cat so that the inheritance goes to them as they believe it should. I would watch that movie. Let's see what it's actually about. After a kidnapped bank teller uses a neighbor's wandering cat to send an SOS, the FBI assigns a cat-allergic agent to the case. So somehow having a cat-allergic agent to an FBI case affects how he handles the case? This wandering cat is going to become a recurring character in this movie for some reason. It would have sounded more like a Disney movie had the cat that they used to send an SOS was then promoted to the FBI. Kind of like an Air Bud thing, but it's a cat FBI agent. It's looking like this is going to be another one that I might pass on. Alright, next up we've got the computer wore tennis shoes. Now, this is clearly an old computer. This one was made in 1969. Nice. So you've got the old giant computer in the background. You've got some girls sitting in the back. You've got what appears to be some sort of doctor examining me. And he's got lightning striking his head. Alright, so I'm going to go with Squints here. He was a computer, but when the computer lab got struck by lightning, somehow it manifested itself into a human being. And of course, when he becomes a human, he's more or less a robot. He perceives everything very analytically, which leads him into shenanigans. And then I think a really key, very important part of this movie that's going to play a very major role is the fact that he wears tennis shoes. I can't stress how important that will be to the plot. Let's read what it's about. At Medfield College, an accident with a donated computer gives Dexter Riley the ability to remember any knowledge learned instantly and perfectly. Alright, so it sounds like I was pretty close. And also, apparently that was Kurt Russell. So, I guess there's still hope. Alright, I was very excited about this next one. It is called Darby, OGill and the Little People. Now I'm just going to go with my gut here and say that this is a movie involving Irish people. And more specifically, leprechauns, or as the politically correct way to say it, little people. So you've got this old guy in the corner playing a violin. I assume that's pretty standard for Ireland. And you've got these two people staring into the ether in the top right corner, and below them is a leprechaun wearing a crown sitting on his pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. All, very basic stereotypes of leprechauns, but what can you expect from Disney in the 50s? Now, if I'm being completely honest, I don't know which of these people might be Darby, partially because I don't know if Darby is a man's or a woman's name. But I'm just going to go with the old guy, shares some story, probably including a song, and it's all about where you can find the little people and their pot of gold, and then these two, they go and find it. The other confusing thing about the two people in the corner is I'm not really sure what the age disparity is. If you told me that they were father-daughter, I'd believe you. If you told me that they were brother-sister, I'd believe you. If you told me that they were intimately together, I would believe you. The girl looks like she could be anywhere from 12 to 22, and the guy looks like he could be anywhere from 26 to 48. A wily old codger matches wits with the king of the leprechauns and helps play matchmaker for his daughter and the strapping lad who has replaced him as caretaker. Alright, I'm going to have to go back and decipher this a little bit. First of all, not sure what a codger is, but it does sound like something that an old Irish man might be. So apparently the old guy is trying to set up the girl with the guy, the strapping lad, that part. Not sure how that plays out. Maybe it's better in the movie than it reads on paper, but something tells me it's not. This is, however, probably the highest rated one of the movies I've gone through so far, so maybe this one's worth a check. Alright, this one doesn't sound nearly as boring. This is $1 Million Duck, and I'm a big fan of the two people and duck in this image, because the guy and the duck are sharing a look that no man should ever share with anything, let alone a duck. And this woman is looking right at me, right at you, like she knows what they're thinking, and she's okay with it. I'm not okay with it. So what do we know about ducks? Well, they have corkscrew penises, and they're rapists. And I think those are going to play a major role in this movie. Oh, and there's also a golden egg on the guy's head, so this duck might produce golden eggs. Professor Dooley takes home a duck from his research laboratory as a toy for his son, but soon finds out that it lays golden eggs. Okay, so I got that part right, and we can neither confirm nor deny that the duck is a rapist in this movie. Alright, keeping on the animal theme, we have Sammy the Way Out seal. And with this image here, we've got a seal. I can only assume it's Sammy, talking to two young kids. They got their fishing poles, they're at the beach. It looks like the beginning of a long-lasting friendship. So I'm going to go like the more standard Disney movie route. I'm guessing that these kids befriend Sammy. They take him home. They take him away from the ocean. He's way out of the ocean, if you will. And, they try to keep him hidden from mom. They have him hidden in the attic or in the basement or under the bed. I'm sure there's a scene where they're all eating dinner together, and then you see behind the dad's shoulders Sammy waddling past him in the living room, and the kids freak out, and the dad's about to turn over his shoulder and see, but then the kid throws a fork at the other kid, and it catches the dad's attention before he can turn around. I think you kind of get the point I'm bringing up here. We've all seen this movie before, I'm sure, in some iteration. And eventually the kids come to realize that it was fun with Sammy, the way out seal, but he's a way in seal at heart and needs to be put back in the ocean where he belongs. Probably not even worth reading the synopsis since I just read it to you, but we'll check it out anyway. I'm not really sure what this is exactly because IMDb has it listed as a 2-part series, so I'm just going to read the plot anyway. A Disney film about 2 young brothers who secretly bring home a seal from their summer vacation and try to hide it from mom and dad. Havoc ensues as Sammy's antics disrupt the quiet town of Gatesville and its unsuspecting residents. I think I pretty much nailed that one. Alright, this looks like a fun one for the whole family. We've got Snowball Express. We've got a pretty rad dad looking guy riding around in a snowmobile. Looks like it might be like a homemade snowmobile based on the kind of mismatched parts that it's made out of. Nonetheless, this guy is way up on a mountain and he's having a good time. He looks like he's actually having a great time, and I think I might know why that is. So this is going to be one of those Disney movies where, it's for kids, but they hide in a few things for the adults, you know what I mean? So what the Snowball Express is just an allegory for drug running. Whatever actually happens in this movie, the subtext is that this guy is smuggling cocaine over the border and he's selling it. And it looks like he may even be sampling it as well. Alright, let's see what kind of thin veil they hide the real story behind. When John Baxter inherits a ski resort in the Rocky Mountains, he quits his job in New York and moves the family west to run it, only to find that the place is a wreck. But together, they decide to try and fix it up and run it. But Martin Ridgway, who wants the property, does everything he can to ensure it will fail. So clearly that's for all the kids in the room, and all of us adults can read between the lines. He inherits a ski resort, which is a front for a drug operation. He runs drugs through the mountains on a snowmobile because it's harder for anyone to track him. He ends up crossing the wrong people. It destroys his family. Classic Disney storyline. Next up, we have The Cat from Outer Space. And it looks like we've got a cat and some sort of UFO. I'm going to assume that cat came to Earth in that UFO. And I'm guessing that's kind of where the story opens. So the question is, what does this cat do when it gets to Earth? Well, funny enough, we've already answered that. He wanders by a bank teller that's being held hostage. The bank teller writes an SOS on him, and then they assign a cat-allergic FBI agent to the case. Okay, it was close. 3 scientists help an alien feline stranded on Earth to repair its damaged spacecraft in order to return home, but their efforts are hampered by inept army officials and foreign spies. So yes, as you would imagine, if a cat came down from outer space, what would our instinctive response to that be? Well, we put our worst guys on the case to fix that spacecraft and send it home, no questions asked. Alright, last but not least, the image that made me laugh the hardest. This is Gus. Now there's a lot to work with this image here, so I'm going to break it down for you. We've got a horse, and it's wearing a helmet. And then we've got a lady, and she's wearing a helmet and what appears to be like a football jersey, so I'm assuming those are football helmets. And then we've got a man who's the only one in the picture who looks like he should be wearing a helmet. However, he's not. He's wearing a hat and a sweater. They're clearly all rooting for the Adams. He may even be the coach. Now you look at this and you might be thinking, what? Women don't play football. Horses don't play football. What's going on here? Here's what I'm thinking happened. So the Adams, this is a small town high school football team sort of thing. And there's a big CTE concern in 1976. So all these parents are pulling their kids off the football team. They don't want that long-lasting brain damage. So in an effort to get enough bodies on the field to even have a team this year, they'd finally decide, we're going to let women play football. And as you can imagine, this does not go over well in this very small, rural, conservative community. So this leads to a big city meeting. The whole town is there, all 38 of them. And the issue gets brought up, and it's passed. They're going to let women play football. And then some guy in the back stands up, and he has his moment, and he goes, "You're going to let women play football? Well, then you might as well just let horses play football." And that's when the coach goes, "You're right." So the final spot on the roster is filled by a horse, and that horse's name is Gus. Alright, so again, I'm feeling pretty confident about this one. I know what you're thinking. No, I was not a writer on it. I wouldn't try to cheat at this very important game, but just for the fun of it, let's read the synopsis and see just how close I got. The California Atoms are in last place with no hope of moving up, but by switching the mule from team mascot to team member, he can kick 100-yard field goals. They start winning and move up in the rankings. Hoorah! The competition isn't so happy. Okay, so maybe the path that led us there was a little bit different, but I think we ultimately ended up in the same spot. And I think this one might be worth watching simply to see the shot of the mule kicking a 100-yard field goal, because if that's not in the movie, then I'm canceling my subscription. Alright, those were some of the dumbest looking movies that are going to be streaming on Disney+. Feel free to check those out, even though I pretty much just told you what they were going to be or what the better version of that movie could have been. I would also encourage you to go through that Twitter thread, because there's a bunch more that I didn't pick out to use for this video that are equally as stupid, if not more stupid. So maybe I'll even do this again at some point. Or not, who knows. See ya.